How's it going, guys? Happy Monday evening. Being a special need parent, you have good days, you have down days. I wouldn't say bad days, they can be bad, but you have down days. And the unfortunate side of it is there's more down days than good days. That's just how it is, You learn to deal, you learn to cope, but you still get down. It still makes you, sad. It really does. And today's for me is one of them days. I took my little boy into hospital today to get some tests done. To get put to sleep. So we had to get a brain scan done. They put a dye into him, and then they scan his brain. Did the MRI. We had ultrasound to his stomach. He had his eyes checked as well. Because with his eyes, he has to be put to sleep because he can't go to normal opticians. Because he won't sit still. And he won't understand what they say when they try and read this number and stuff, and read this letter. He just wouldn't do it. He's autistic as well as mentally disabled and all these other things. So for him, it was just not going to happen. So for him to test his eyes, he has to be put to sleep. The brain scan, he has to look for developmental issues in his brain and stuff like that, whatever they're looking for. Last time we had one of them done was when he was 3, and they did show a few things, signs of a previous infraction or whatever it was, and a few other bits. So they're just checking that. The ultrasounds, the full body MRI, they're checking for things because of his neurofibromatosis, things like neurofibromas, which essentially are like tumours that grow on your body. It can go internally, externally, and there is a very minute chance that these can turn cancerous. So you have to keep an eye on them, and they can cause problems. If they grow on like joints or organs and stuff, they can cause problems. So you're looking for them. Now the results for the brain scan and stuff like that, the MRIs, they're going to take between 4 to 6 weeks to get the results back. The eye scan, there's a lot quicker. But during the eye scan, he has to get like liquid put in his eyes. Now they tell us that it's going to be irritating. It's going to be a bit blurry vision for a little bit afterwards. Now Matthew's vision's blurry anyway. One optician told us that his vision's like looking through his kaleidoscope. So you can imagine how bad that would be. Kaleidoscope eyes. And on top of that, it'd be blurry and irritating for him. So when he woke up, he wants that fixing. That's what he thinks. And he's like, "Daddy, fix, Daddy, Daddy, clean," because he thinks that I can fix it. And I felt so sad and so sorry for him that I can't, because I'm his dad. I should be able to fix him. My boy wants me to fix something. I'm his dad. I can fix it. But in this case, I can't. No matter how hard I try, I can't fix it. I just have to wait till the dyes wear all off and stuff like that. But in the meantime, I did feel down because he's asking me, and he's probably thinking, "Wait there, Dad, you fix everything," and I can't fix that. So this is a down day for me in a way. But then, as I say, the results from the rest of the stuff is going to be, quite a long wait. But when we was at home, the optician doctor rang and he says, "So Matthew's eyes are getting worse, a lot worse. He's only got really one sort of, we call it a good eye, but one eye that he sort of looks properly through. The other eye he doesn't really use as much. So when he looks at his tablet or his phone or a book, whatever, he holds up just to one eye mainly, So we know his other eye was actually quite bad. We didn't know how bad. But the doctor said, the eye doctor, that he is going to need surgery, probably more sooner than later. And that's because his lenses are quite bad in both his eyes, but one more than the other one. So he just say he's mainly using just one eye. And like I said, for now they're gonna leave him for the time being because he's learned to cope with his vision, although it was limited with just the one eye. You know, he won't wear glasses or anything. We tried and he just won't. He just looks like anything on his face. It just like plasters on it. So, you know, funny thing, he had the cannula in, and we had to tell them before he even woke up, look, we need to take this out, because the second he wakes up, he's going to rip that out. He won't keep it in. So we had to take that out prior to him waking up. But yeah, so today hasn't been great, you know. And that's just life of a special needs parent, isn't it? You know, I'm heading back to work now, and I didn't really want to. I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to go back to work. I wanted to stay at home and look after my boy. I wanted to be there for him. And give him all hugs and kisses. You know, he's got his mum there, his mum, you know, and his brother and sister to look after him. So that's good, you know. And they're amazing. But, you know, I was dad, you know, and I wanted to be there. But I have to go back to work. I've got a job to do. And I do this job to give him the best life that I can possibly give him. And it's quite ironic really, because this job keeps me away from seeing his life, what I give him by doing this job. You know. But I'm going back to work anyway. And I know he'll be fine. As I say, his mum's there, his mum's looking after him. We always say his little sister, even though she's 22 and she's older than him, she's tiny. And Matthew's obviously taller than me. So we say his little sister. And he's got his brother as well, his older brother. So he's got plenty to help his mum with whatever needs he's got. And I know his vision will come back to his acceptable level, you know, that he's used to. But it's just, I felt so sorry for him when he was asking me to help him with his eye. It got me down a bit, you know, so I'm not exactly going back to work in the best moods. Yeah, you know, it's just, I don't know. I'm assuming, and I know for a fact there's plenty of other special needs parents out there that know what that's like. You know, there's people with, you know, children with like these rare conditions, you know, like HCU and NF1. Who have gone through similar things, you know, especially the scans and waiting for the results. Yeah. Anyway, we'll carry on driving. Sorry for my little out of usual sort of depressing in a way rant, but you know, it is what it is. Special needs dad, and this is my life. There will be good days, there will be bad days. Today's a bad day, but it'll get better. It always gets better. And I'll be giving another positive video tomorrow. So thanks for watching, anyone. Sorry if you have to put up with my miserable chat. See you in the next one.